Good afternoon. My name is David Addison, and Sheila O'Neill is here with us to index the interview. We both work for the Santa Cruz Public Libraries in California. Today is Thursday, January 25th, 2018, and we are conducting an interview with Frank J. Rimicci at the Downtown Library in Santa Cruz, California for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. So Frank, let's start with where you were born and who your parents were and their occupations.
I was born in Chicago, and my dad's name was Leonard Rimicci. The name was, in true Italian, is pronounced Rimicci. But my brother in high school got the name Mickey Rimicci. So they call him Mickey all the time. So we went by the name Rimicci. And my mother's name was Domenica Philly, her maiden name. And born in Chicago in 1924. I was 94 years old just a couple of days ago, the 19th of January.
Happy birthday. Lovely. And what were your parents' occupations?
My father did all kinds of jobs. He worked in a rubber company, inland rubber company, cutting the rubber off of those machines when they had enough and roll it up and all that. Mm-hmm. And I was a railroad man, worked on the Baltimore and Ohio-Chicago Terminal Railroad in Chicago. And I was there a couple of years. And the Army wanted me, I guess, and I didn't even know it, but they gave me a deferment. And I told them about it. I mean, they told me about it, or I asked them about it, I forget which. But anyway, I told them, I says, no, don't give me a deferment. Next time the Army calls for me, or if they want me, let me go, because I want to get over there and do my share, which they did. They let me go, and I was in the Army then.
And
May of 1943, got it.
1943. And do you have any siblings?
I have two boys.
Any siblings, brothers or sisters?
Oh, I had four brothers and four sisters.
Oh my goodness.
And I have one sister left.
Okay, and what were their, well, you probably, I don't know if you want to list all their names. Did any of them serve in the military as well?
George was in the military. He was in the Air Force. John was in the Air Force. Joe was in the transportation. Joe Rimicci. And, of course, me. How many did I get there? John, Joe, George, and me. Mm-hmm. And we were all in the service.
Wow.
All the boys. And all 5 girls. Angeline, she's still alive. She's about 96 years old right now. And Josephine was the oldest, and Ann, next oldest, and then Mary is the next oldest, and then Angie. Angie's still living, 96 years old. She's in Chicago. And we talk to each other on the phone about every other night. Keep in contact.
Nice. So what were you doing before you entered the service? You mentioned that a little bit, but yeah.
I was working on the railroad. I was a yard conductor, okay. Switchman. Cold job, really cold. 17 below zero was the coldest I ever watched on the thermometer. And that wasn't counting any wind chill factor either. It's just plain old cold, on the thermometer. 17 below. Never forgot that.
So in which branch of the military did you serve?
I wanted to get in the Marines, And they told me, well, you had a good aptitude test, and it suits the Signal Corps, and we'd like to have you in the Signal Corps. I says, well, if you don't put me in the Marine Corps, I says, put me in Railroad Battalion or Transportation, because I came from the railroad. So that's what they did. They put me in the Railroad Transportation Corps.
Is that the same as the Signal Corps then, or is the Signal
No.
Corps something different though? What's the?
They're altogether different.
Okay. So the Transportation Corps. And what was your highest rank during your service?
Buck Sergeant.
Sergeant.
In the States, I was a drill sergeant, giving them in rifle positions and exercises and field drills, marching and all that. And overseas, they made me, like I was in the States, conductor. And that's where I got my 3 stripes over there. Because in the States, they had me as a drill sergeant, but I was an acting sergeant. And they told me the officers in charge told me to put the stripes on, because, eventually you're going to get the stripes. But while I was in the States, I never got them. But I did their work for them as a drill sergeant. Take the company out and give them rifle positions and exercises, all kinds of marching exercises and all that. Show them what the Army's all about, how to obey orders.
And I think you touched on this, but were you drafted or did you enlist?
Well, you might say I enlisted because I told them to don't give me a deferment. So whether you want to call it drafted or enlisted, I'm not sure. It's up to the railroad in the Army.
Right.
And I never did ask either one of them how I entered the service, All I knew is I got in the service.
Very good. And so, okay, we did cover this. If you enlisted, you chose that specific branch, and so you kind of did have an influence on where you ended up, right? They didn't just place you somewhere. You kind of suggested to when you entered the military that you would like to be in the Transportation or the Signal Corps. So you did have some kind of influence on where you ended up in the military?
Because I was a railroad man at the beginning.
Yes.
And I had experience at that. So they let me go in the railroad battalion.
Very good. You were able to have some choice. Sometimes if you're drafted, it seems like you might get placed somewhere where you may or may not want to be, but you had some influence on where you ended up.
More or less, yes.
Yeah. That's great. So tell me about your boot camp training experiences. So, like any specialized training and your instructors, the physical regimen. Just how was boot camp training for you?
It was good for me. I had good company commander and good first sergeant, although we called him something else. But he was strictly Army, and we just took his orders and gave them to the men.
Did you receive any specialized training at boot camp?
Did I?
Yeah.
No. I just kind of stepped into it. They saw I was good at handling the troops, so they put me as a buck sergeant.
Mm-hmm. And what did you think about the physical regimen? The barracks, the food, just adapting to military life in general?
The food down there in New Orleans was not good. In fact, our battalion went on strike, and we didn't want to eat anymore. We can't eat this stuff, This food is better than this, and they don't know how to cook it, whatever it is, but it's not good. But they give us a little better food after that.
What did they do to make improvements in the food?
Oh, I don't remember, but they satisfied us a little better and give us better food.
And was it challenging for you at all, or the physical regimen when you first started boot camp? Then they worked you pretty hard, or was it something you fell up to the task? Was that different for you compared to what you were doing before the military? Just the kind of physical activity that you partook in?
Well, we learned the Army way of railroading, stuff like that. But as far as being anything like the railroad I worked for, the Army was different altogether. Marching and what do you want to call it? Had taken my turn at the rifle shooting, and I made sharpshooter with the rifle. And pistol I made, I forget what they give me a little medal with the pistol too, but I forget what was it sharpshooter or expert? I don't think I made expert with the pistol. I'm not sure. I just forgot all about that pistol deal. But the rifle I did make an expert.
So where did you serve, and how did you get there?
We were down there in Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana, Camp Harahan. And I think while we were down there, they changed the name. I can't think of the name of the camp. They changed the name to Camp Harahan, Camp Lejeune. I think it got a couple of different names because they didn't have a very good name. And I guess that's why they changed it.
And did you serve overseas?
Oh yes.
Yeah, where did you serve overseas?
Well, we landed in Omaha Beach, in Normandy. Pitched our tents in an apple orchard. Raining like heck, and we slept in our little two-man tent. It took 2 men to make a tent, because you had a shelter half, we called it. Each man had a half of it. You get 2 men together and they could make one tent out of it. And we slept on the ground, and we wouldn't turn over because we were in a puddle of water, and the first thing you know, you're turning over in cold water. You just stay in that one position when we were trying to sleep, and you warmed up that water and stayed that way. And then we start taking our trains out. I was conductor on the first train, and I happened to have an engineer that was in the railroad with me in Chicago, Myron D. Jones. We used to call him Myron Dilly Jones, just for nickname. Anyway, we took this train out, and we were in Normandy, and we were going up a little grade, and the train went into emergency brakes, and they didn't know what happened, So I give them a 15 or 20 minutes, whatever it was, and they still didn't move up there. I thought, well, maybe somebody, cat got in the way or dog got in the way or something, and then they emergency train, put brakes on the train. And anyway, they didn't start moving, so I told George, our morning wake, my flagman, I said, George, I'm going up to the head end and see why we're stopped so long. What stopped us? I said, you go back there and flag and watch our hind end. Oh, okay. So I went up to the front end, and the hook and links were slipping off each other. And so we got some wire somewhere, wrapped it around there real good and tied it real tight. And I told Myron, I said, well, get up there and give it a little pull, see if she holds. So he started the engine, started going ahead, and it held real good. It started pulling a few cars and it held real good. I said, okay, give me about 5 minutes until I get to the hind end and start blowing George in, the signal for the flagman to return. So we got there, I got there, and I got about 4 cars away from the hind end, and here comes, I see, here down the hill and around the curve, here comes 2 diesels with 33 cars of 200-pound bombs in back of them. And he was coming down that hill like a bat out of hell. And I give him a big washout with my lamp. It was 5 a.m. It's just breaking day, and he's still using the lamp. So I give him a big washout with my lamp, and I said to myself, if he don't see this, I said, if he don't see that train, he ain't gonna see this lamp either. So I threw it up in the air as high as I could for the light to be visible to them as long as it could be, because I was gonna take off. I dove over the side of the hill because I thought he was gonna hit those cars, because I know there's no way in the world he could have stopped. Even if he put up the whole train in emergency, he'd have slid the whole thing, because they were all loaded, boom, he hit that damn hind end of ours. And I was wishing I was a gopher so I could crawl in the hole, so help me God. I thought those cars were going to roll down on me, but they never did. They went that way on the other side. And when that rumbling stopped, I got up, thank God, and I went up the hill, and I started looking under the cars for George. I thought, well, maybe he got tired and went back to fall asleep in the cars, So I kept looking for him and looking, hollering, George. And he come from the back end. He said, what do you want? He said, what are you hollering about? I said, gee, I thought maybe you fell asleep in one of these cars on the hind end here and you got mashed up and killed, They smashed up 7 of our cars.
Wow.
No, he says, I was back there flagging like you told me. I said, well, they didn't see you? He says, they didn't even see me. They went right by me, he says. They didn't even know who I was or what I was there for, nothing, So, and like I say, they wouldn't have stopped anyway, because they were coming down that damn hill, around that curve.
No bombs exploded though, right?
None of them.
That's good.
So we had artillery shells, 3 in a case, and I don't know how many cases in one car, but the car was loaded with them. The whole train was loaded. If one of them would have went off, well, I guess they can't go off unless they're detonated. The detonator is set, so nothing went off either train. Thank God.
Yes. So I'm curious about the tracks then for the train. So you unloaded the trains from your cargo ships, or
No, we'd had the train loaded for us already. All we did was get on the train and take it to its destination.
So did our troops lay down the tracks then, or were the tracks already there?
Our troops did. We used their tracks. They had tracks of their own.
Okay, so you
their
did.
own. And we had some of our steam engines. That was our steam engines that had the trouble. Our own came from the States, believe it or not.
Yeah, wow.
And they had steam engines and diesels.
Okay.
Otherwise, we used French engines, and when we got to Germany, we used German engines, and some of our diesels, some of our steam engines.
So obviously somebody knew, the information they gathered before you landed on Normandy. They knew that there were a bunch of tracks that you could use.
Oh yeah!
Right?
In fact, the Air Force was instructed not to bomb this place, not to bomb that place. Save for terminals for us, so we can use those. B Company was the company that repaired our engines.
Wow.
A Company repaired the tracks that were damaged.
Right.
And C Company was us guys run the cars, the trains in charge.
Did you have any particular things that you transported, or just whatever they needed you to do to that day, or what kinds of things did you transport?
Whatever they had in the cars. They had train loads of ammunition, they had train loads of gasoline, had train loads of engineering equipment, train loads of hospital supplies, train loads of food, and just whatever they had, we hauled for 'em up to the front lines, mainly following General George Patton, his Third Army. In fact, I got the train of tanks, General Patton's 4th Armored, and I was in charge of that. Took it from Bastogne to oh boy, I'm forgetting the name of the town up there that they relieved the Air Force, the 101st Airborne Division, in real trouble up there. But anyway, I was in charge of that train and took it up to, oh boy, probably that's why they gave me that medal for taking that train up there. I remember that night, it was midnight, I was leaving, and I walked the whole train, and I remember looking at those tanks. I said, what are these guys having for holy hell, you know? And they were, but they did the job up there.
So besides Normandy, where else did you serve? Or is that the main location during
Well,
World
that's
War II?
the main original stop
Mhm.
in Normandy. Then we went on to all different towns all along France.
Okay.
Bar-le-Duc, Lerouville, I don't know, I forget most of the towns. But we stopped at, there's a lot of towns along the way.
So were you involved in any combat missions?
No,
No?
we got shot at a bunch of times though, with the German Luftwaffe. You heard of bullets bouncing around the station, you know. Duck, boys, duck.
So, but your main duties and assignments were running the trains and making
Running
sure
the
that
trains.
the transport got where it needed to go, and mostly in France.
Yeah, and our captain, I told him, what about our food supply? You know, what are we going to eat out there? If you go hungry, it's your own fault. Because every once in a while you'd get a food train. And I was walking along a food train one time. I was looking at the cars to see which ones, they're all closed up, and see which one had some kind of K rations or C rations or whatever that we can easily get at and eat, you know. And here comes an MP guarding the train, and he's, what are you looking for? I said, I'm looking for something to eat. He said, well, you're not going to get it here. I says, no. I says, we were instructed that if we go hungry, it's our own fault. And we don't have any sorts of food. We don't have no kitchens along the road or nothing. I says, if you want to handle that rifle, I says, I've been taught to handle this pistol. We had pistols right at the beginning. I said, if you want to have it out, I said, you let me know. You know. Riley says, come on up to the head end. He says, we got some food up there in the car next to the engine. He said, we'll give you something to eat. And I said, well, as long as you feed me, pal. I never forgot that either.
So did you receive any medals or special honors during your service? I think you made a big list. Yeah, you got one right there, right? And what medal is this?
French Medal of Honor.
Nice.
It's supposed to be the highest medal in I don't know if it's in this category or the highest medal in France, you know. It says so on that Consul's General deal.
And that medal was for.
They didn't say what it was
they didn't say.
actually for. I got the papers here. I got the oh, this is from you. Anyway, I got the deal here. Anyway, to answer your question, they didn't say they sending me the diploma for the Legion of Honor, but they didn't say what it was, what the medal was actually for. They sent me a questionnaire about how many years after say 3 months ago, last July. So I filled that out and sent it back to them, and about a month and a half, 2 months later, whatever it was, they said, "Congratulations, you've been awarded the Medal of Honor, and you show up in San Francisco French consulate to receive your medal."
Really?
So they didn't say what it was for or how brave I was or anything, you know. It just gave me the medal. You know, people say, "What'd you do to get the medal?"
You served.
I did as much as I can whenever I could, and I guess they liked it. You know, when we hauled loaded trains up there, we reach over and get a trainload of refugees. The war was going our way, and the French people were getting released after being captured by the Germans and working in their factories and all that. So they all came back in our trainloads of them.
Did you receive any other medals?
We have 4 battle stars. We were in 4 different battles along the way.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the, if I can find it now.
So what was your role in the battles? And were you just making sure that the trains were getting?
That was our job.
And did you have troops that were supporting you, your safety, or to make sure you can actually get there? Or were people just shooting at you? Was the enemy just shooting at you as you were trying to transport?
No, we just all by ourselves, and
Really?
we just had to either duck or get killed or whatever. Some of our boys. Here's 4 of my brothers, and one of them is my brother-in-law, John, Mario, me, Joey here, and George. He's not in the picture, my other brother, George. But this is the only picture. I got a picture of here from at the French deal. I got a picture, and I don't know what happened to the other sheet. But I wanted the picture of these 3 guys. There were only 4 of us that got the medal.
You want to hold up that picture again one more time? Yeah, that one? Yeah, okay, go ahead, hold that up. We'll do a close-up.
There's one brother, George. He's missing from here.
These are your brothers.
One of my brothers, right. And the brother-in-law is missing too.
That's amazing.
So we had a whole family of boys in the service.
Okay, that's good. Wow.
And here's a little deal. Battle of the Bulge in Bastogne. Libremont to Bastogne. is what I was trying to think of before.
Right.
That's where I hauled the train from Liebermont to Bastogne. That was the Battle of the Bulge. And there's a little notation I gave, and I give a copy of that to the French people that asked me what I did overseas. And I give them all that stuff.
That's great. So did you form any friendships while serving in the military? Did you have many buddies or friends during your service?
They sent me to Poix Saint-Hubert, a little town with a railroad station. It was a real small station, one stop. At Poix Saint-Hubert, Chef Lejeune and Madame Lejeune, his wife. I was in charge of the station for the Americans. And my rations were sent up to me for her to cook for me. And she was a real good cook. I hated to leave there, boy. I was only there about, 2-3 weeks, I guess. And then they needed me on the road again or whatever. And anyway, I was back on the road. But I cried like a little kid, when I had to leave her. She was wonderful.
So did you have much R&R while you were in the service, and how did you spend that time if you did have R&R?
Didn't have any.
None, huh? They kept you busy.
I was in Paris once, and I stayed there a couple of days because I was trying to find out where our outfit was and where to go to meet them, I didn't know. I don't know how I got in touch with somebody, but somebody got in touch with me and told me where the outfit was. So I left Paris, and I met a guy and his wife in Paris, FFE, French Forces of the Interior. He was kind of a big shot in there. And he took me around one night to a couple of nightclubs in Paris. And the American troops were through there already, and French were still celebrating the release from the Germans.
So were you able to stay in touch with friends or family back home? During your service, when you were over in France, were you able to stay in touch with friends or family back home?
Oh yeah, writing letters. I was able to, yeah. But I never got in touch with those people again.
Right, the other folks. I'm curious about your brothers, and did you all serve during the same time during World War II? Were any of them in the same branch of the military, or were you kind of spread out all over?
No, John was in the Air Force. George was in the Air Force. Joe was in a transportation truck driver.
Okay.
He was in the South Pacific.
So you never saw each other during the time of of the war?
No.
Interesting. Were you able to contact with each other with letters or anything, or was it mostly just your family back home in the States?
Just the family in the States, and my sister and my mother. Yeah.
That must have been amazing for your family back home to try to keep in touch with 4 of you, all the brothers, right? Hopefully they were able to do that.
Mario, my brother Mario here,
Mm-hmm.
he was in Egypt, Transjordan, Egypt. It took, I forget what he told me, how many days it took him to get back from there. I forget now. I know we come back on a victory ship in 1946, and I was sick. It took us 14 days to get back home on the ocean. And I was sick, turd and a dog, for 13 days. And the sergeant wanted me, the top kick, the first sergeant wanted me, he sent the company clerk, around to get me for sergeant of the latrine, the bathrooms, make sure there's kept clean and all that. I said, you tell. I'm trying to think of the nickname we gave him. Anyway, Jones, Double E Jones. I said, you tell Jones if he wants me, he's going to have to come and get me. He never showed up. I was thicker than the dog. Well, 13 days,
So that was right after the war ended then, and then 46, or was the war
in
still
40,
ending?
that was after the war in 46, yeah.
And 14 days to get home. So you made it back home, and what was your experience when you first arrived back home?
Nothing out of the usual. There's no parades or nothing. I mean, we just come back as a battalion
Really?
in Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, and we got on a train. I forget how it went really. Got on a train and come back to Illinois, Chicago.
And what did you do in the days and the weeks after you got back home?
Went back to work on the railroad. Glad to get back anyway.
Was it difficult adjusting back to civilian life?
No.
No?
My legs were hurting me. I got frozen feet up there in Belgium. And we had cars. We didn't have any cabooses so where we could build a fire and, nothing like that. Anyway, I just got frozen feet from the really cold Belgium. Really cold up there. I had my legs hurting and time and again. But I worked on the railroad and I went back to work.
Did you make a career out of working on the railroads when you got back to Chicago then? Is that pretty much what you did for
I continued. I forget how long I worked there after I got back, but I got married and my wife wanted to visit her aunt and uncle in Santa Cruz. So we took a trip out here and we liked the town and they wanted us to stay there and live with them. And he wanted to put me to work. He owned a bunch of slot machines and all kinds of stuff in Santa Cruz. So, but I never did work on the slot machines. Anyway, we got our own place to live. We didn't get along that good. It wouldn't. We want to go to a movie theater or something. You're wasting money. What are you wasting all that money for? And they had a lot of money and they just didn't want to use any of it. In fact, when he passed away, God bless him, he was about, I think, 100 years old. He left each one of my kids $400,000. Me, nothing. I was there going fishing with him, take him up fishing up north and all that, did things around his house and all that, fix his garage doors and all that. But we got along good. And he treated the kids good. That's
How many kids do you have?
Mine,
Yeah, how many kids do you have?
2 boys.
Boys, yeah.
And one of them is still single. He's living with me.
Yeah.
He's 63. He just turned 63 last January 6th.
And have you kept in contact with fellow veterans through the years? Are you in touch with any of your veteran friends or anybody that you met along the way?
We had quite a few reunions. And I went to, I don't remember how many I went to. Chicago, New York, Kentucky, a couple out here around California, I forget which ones. But most of the guys have passed away and they kind of quit the reunions. Even you can see in the magazines, Army reunions cutting down from 2
columns down to one column and maybe 10 or 15 names, and that's all. Maybe not even that much. So they cut the reunions out, but we had a good time seeing each other. But
Yeah.
most of the guys were older than me. I was a young kid then. I was 19 when I got in. And most of the guys were railroad men. They were older than me. And some of them were my size. The youngest kid in the outfit, God bless him, Billy Hedden from Minnesota, he got mashed up in cars. He got killed. And then we had another, Rock Allen got killed. And then another guy, Joe Cushman, got killed. He tried to, I forget how the heck it went, but I read in somewhere, I don't know, it's probably in there. He tried to back his train up to cushion that train up the hill, lost his brakes, and I think they were full of ammunition or something like that, but he couldn't do the job that he wanted to try, that he tried to do, God bless him. And they come down and hit him and blew him up in his engines. He was a engineer on one of the engines, and Joe Cushman got killed too. I didn't know what happened to him until I reached the States here. Years and years later, I read about him getting killed that way, And here I never even knew he was dead, got killed.
Sounds like there was definitely a certain sense of danger running the railroads, or a certain aspect of danger, even though you weren't necessarily on the front lines in combat, but you had people shooting at you, and then it sounds like it was very dangerous to actually just trying to run the trains and keep the things running and getting the transport done, and a very dangerous job, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, and some of those guys run those trains pretty fast.
It sounds like, right?
You're just lucky that the railroad was still there and in good shape. They go in 30, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour, something.
Wow.
And they were used to that because they were engineers in the States.
Right.
I ran an engine one time, I told the Frenchman, I said, "Need mechanician." I told him I'm going to be the engineer. So I did. So he was in back of me, looking at me. But I knew all about his tools there on the engine. So I just took over the engine for a while.
So are you a member of any veterans organizations?
I was at VFW, I still am, a life member. In the American Legion, I was in that outfit, and then I backed out and quit. And I guess that's the only outfits.
Mm-hmm.
We have a group on 41st Avenue clinic out there on 41st and Jade.
Mm-hmm.
We meet every first and third Thursdays of every month. So we meet twice a month, and we have discussion of amongst what's happened to our guys and what we've been doing in the service and all that. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. I must have been 4 or 5 guys died since I belonged to that outfit, and I've been attending meetings. I don't know how long. Most of them were. Well, I'm 94, and a couple of them are 95, and one guy's 97, another guy's 96, another guy's 90. And just older guys, And they were in the Navy, Air Force, and I was the only railroad man in the whole bunch.
So How did wartime experiences affect your life?
Well, it gave me these pains in my legs. I still feel them, my feet and my legs. Yeah. And I got peripheral neuropathy. I guess it developed from that, but the Army don't believe in that. They don't think so. Anyway, my feet still hurt today. Every morning when I wake up, I get my legs feel pretty stiff, and this thing is the right leg is just pains like hell. So I don't know. There's just nothing they can do about it, and just give me a bunch of pain pills, you might call them. I can't think of the name of it. That acetaminophen.
Mm-hmm.
I take some of those once in a while, but I didn't want to take pills and take pills and take pills. And the first thing you know, my kidneys, the stomach is starting to go on the blink, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I just leave well enough alone and suffer the pain like I've been doing for the last 60, 70 years, believe it or not. But that's the way it was. That's the way it is.
And did your military experiences influence your thinking about war or the military in general? Did that leave some impressions with you at all, just your experience in general?
Oh, I see the airplanes go over, and I think of those airplanes being Germans, too,
Really?
you know, and I wonder what it could be Germans or whatever, you know. Never forget some of those scenes. Thinking about them all night and stuff like that, you know, but
And do you think your service had any influence on your perspective or your opinion about the current wars that we're in?
the what?
The current wars, did your military experience influence your thinking on the current wars that we're in Afghanistan, Iraq, those kind of situations?
Oh, I feel
Has it
sorry for
influenced
those
your-
guys, you know, they're like in Vietnam and
Mhm.
Korean wars and all that, you know, they just, war is hell. Like we had one officer used to always tell us, war is hell. War is hell, and it sure was.
Mhm. So did you maybe take any life lessons learned from your military service?
Any what?
Any life lessons that you want to share that you gained from your military experience?
Life?
Life lessons, just anything that really stuck with you.
Not really. A lot of memories, you know.
And
I think that there's a picture somewhere in this book of that accident. Look at all these guys, and most of them are gone. C Company, and I guess the headquarters company, and pictures of Germany after our bombers got through with them. Here's some of the railroad yards.
you want to hold that up for the camera? Yeah, we get a little close up on it. If you just want to kind of turn it around and hold it up, yeah. And I'll get a close up. And this book, where did you get this book from? Is this like your book from during the wartime, or did you?
Our chaplain made the book up,
Okay.
and here's a couple of our guys.
So yeah, just hold that up for a sec.
Wherever they had headquarters,
Mm-hmm.
our headquarters, C Company, our guys were there There they are, a couple of them. Oakley, Marmar, I forget his name. We had the Meritorious Service Unit plaque citation. I don't even know where that is. Here's after the war was over in Mainz, Germany. I was in one of those troops, but I can't tell where I was. They all look alike to me in the GI uniform.
So we're getting close to the end of the interview and all the questions I had. One of the probably just as important questions is, do you have any messages you'd like to leave for future generations who will look at your interview or hear your interview? Do you have a message for them?
Try not to go to war. Hope to God they don't never have to go. General Patton dedicating the Roosevelt Bridge in Mainz, Germany. Helped our trains to get over there. I'm trying to find that picture of Billy Hedden. There's some of our guys getting a medal. I never even heard of it when I was over there. I've always gone. Well,
Billy Haddon? That's who you're looking for?
Billy Hedden.
So that's about all the questions that I have for the interview. Is there anything that you'd like to add that we haven't covered?
Not that I know of.
Okay, very good.
Times. Here's the accident.
Oh yeah, let's get a close up. Yeah.
See where the tank cars got telescope?
Uh huh.
Billy was in that empty car with a bunch of tanks in front of him, and the engines of the train that followed him hit that boxcar, and he shoved them right into that tanks, and it telescoped right into the boxcar, and there was 8 people in there, and Billy Hedden was one of them. You can see it going right through that boxcar. And that's about it, I guess. A couple of times I got almost killed by a train. I just lucked out.
What happened? Yeah.
Well, we delivered we were going back with a bunch of empties this time, and they were supposed to, I forget exactly how it went. They were supposed to put this here hind car on to the train, and I was in there with the hook and link putting it on there. And while I was doing that, I heard boom, 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 boom. He took off before he even got a sign from me. And when those trains go, boom, they just go. You know, there's no warning or nothing. So I heard the train moving ahead of me, and I just dove out from in between the wheels. And if I'd have hit a step or something like that, I'd have
probably hit my shoulder or fell or something, but I made one dive, just boom, and I cleared everything. Oh boy. Otherwise, I'd have been cut in half,
Yeah.
you know.
Wow. Dangerous job indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and it's been our pleasure. It's just amazing to capture these on film and be able to share that with future generations in the Library of Congress, and we thank you very much. Yeah, it's a wrap.
I can't say I hope they enjoy them because it's not